Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ask Me Anything for the CrossFit Linchpin private track closed Facebook group. It's a mouthful. Today is Thursday, April 15th, and here in the US, that's tax day. So, potentially not the best day. But anyway, great questions as always. And we'll dive right in. Let's have some fun. I've got my answers prepared. I've had 2 cups of coffee. The sun is shining here in the great state of Washington. So, what more can you ask for? It's a rest day, so I get to just I was going to say hang out, but what that means is I get to spend more time at my computer doing work. But anyway, it's a rest day. It's a great day. So, first question is from Jill. Heavily upvoted. Jill says, have you ever made up a totally unobtainable super fitness robot time just to see if someone would post that they beat it? Inquiring minds want to know. So for anyone who's unfamiliar with it, on the private track we give a couple goal times every day. Super fitness robot time, which is a highly ambitious, highly aggressive time, but humanly possible. And you don't need to be Matt Fraser to do it, because what fun would that be? But it's just a really challenging time. And then we give the more likely time, which, don't let that name fool you. That's no joke or no laughing matter. The more likely time, which is where most athletes, even very capable ones, will be, you're still working hard. But we dangle that super fitness robot out there as a carrot, and every now and then people get it. And Jill, I like your question because first of all, here's the short answer to your question. No. I have never just made a super fitness robot time that I thought was not obtainable to see if anybody could do it. I always truly try to make it just a tough time. Really, it is just that simple. A tough time, but obtainable. And the follow-up question that tagged on to Jill's question is from Chris. I like this one too, so we'll chat. This won't take more than a second. So Chris jumps in and says, if I can piggyback on this one, how do you feel when you put a fitness robot time down and the Linchpin community crushes it? He says this happens maybe twice a year, that I see a super fitness robot time that I make, and then I'm in the bottom 20%, the next time. Am I impressed or saddened that I didn't get the time right? Love the question, and I would push back on it a little bit, because I think that's how most people feel, and it shouldn't be that way. And what I mean is, somebody that most of the time, they're a more likely time athlete, which, by the way, the overwhelming majority of capable CrossFitters on the planet are around the more likely time and not around the super fitness robot time. And every now and then, a workout comes out, and due to the time domain that it's in, or the loading that it has or doesn't have, or the movements, is it weightlifting, is it monostructural, is it gymnastics, the rep range, it just falls beautifully into somebody's wheelhouse, and they knock it out of the park, right? And they crush it. And then I see those people post, like, I got the super fitness robot time today. Something must have gone wrong. And I always try to comment when that happens. You shouldn't feel that way. Celebrate it. You earned it. Allow yourself to relish in the fact that this one was just right over the plate for you and you hit it out of the park. Awesome. Celebration time, fireworks in the background, high fives, life is good. Absolutely fantastic. So that's my general thought on that one. Next question was from Emma. Another great question. Everybody's killing it today with the questions. So Emma's question, a wonderful question. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. What is your opinion on garage gym athletes learning high-skilled movements such as Olympic lifting without hands-on in-person coaching? For example, I really struggle with the snatch or the overhead squat. I record my videos and can see that my technique doesn't look right, but I am missing the cues to fix it. Flexibility is also an issue, she states. Should I just not bother with these movements at all when they are programmed and always scale or replace as my life isn't going to be any better just because I can snatch? Or should I take the time to try and learn without an in-person coach, or are you destined always to struggle? What a fantastic question. A lot to unpack in there, as they say. So, okay. We'll just dive in. We'll start picking it apart. We'll dive in. So, high skill movements, such as first of all, how to say this kindly. The snatch and the clean and jerk and the full clean, and other complicated movements, gymnastics, for example, walking on your hands, ring muscle ups, things like that. Yes, they are high skill, technically complicated movements, but then you have to ask, compared to what? Well, compared to single joint, low skill, machine-based movements that don't require coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance. Absolutely, the overhead squat is really, really hard compared to sitting on the leg press and just pushing the leg press. Incredibly hard compared to the leg extension or the leg curl. So it's always just a compared to what? The overhead squat and the full snatch, yes, very complicated things that you have to do with the barbell, but there are more complicated things out there, such as potentially colonizing Mars. My point being that don't make them in your mind this unattainable, crazy, out of reach thing that only elite athletes and Olympians do, and I'm a regular person, so there's just no way it's out of my reach. Don't let it become that in your head. It is just like so many other things in life, that when you're brand new to it, and if it is something, relatively speaking, that requires a fair amount of technical knowledge, technique, sequencing of the body, movement patterns, flexibility, yeah, when you're a beginner, it's going to seem like a mountain that you have to climb, and it's going to be a bit of a long journey. But it is a journey that the overwhelming majority of people can make tremendous progress with, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, is it possible to learn high skill movements such as that in your garage without in-person coaching? The answer to that is yes. Because if the answer was no, I wouldn't know a single human being that's done it. But I do. So the answer is yes. It is absolutely possible, and it is obtainable. But there's no free lunch. It also is very challenging. So if you're going to do it on your own, you can do it, but it's going to take the time that it takes. It's going to be a long road of just small incremental progress, and it's going to be challenging and require effort. More time and work will be required, and not everybody has the discipline to do that, but you absolutely can. So ways that you can do it, there's a tremendous amount of resources out there and endless videos on YouTube of, you name the lift, there's a video on YouTube shot at a beautiful angle, well lit, with a person who moves beautifully in full speed, or you can slow it down frame by frame and just really study the movement. And you can go ahead and record yourself on your phone in a similar angle so that you can compare your video to that professional lifter, so to speak, and you can record yourself in slow motion. And there's also apps that you can use that will draw a little line on the video that you recorded, and that line will show exactly where your bar path is. And you can also compare that to what's happening on the video that has the ideal movement pattern, for example, frame by frame. Very tough thing to do, which human beings generally struggle with, is removing your ego and realizing that you are learning something challenging and resisting the urge to add loading quickly. Whatever pace that you're on, don't worry about it. If you're just with a PVC pipe for a long time, that's okay. You're still learning, and there's a tremendous benefit to just learning to snatch with a PVC pipe or a broom handle. Then when you graduate one day to an empty barbell, that's a huge deal, and you should celebrate that. And you can get really fit explosively opening your hips and driving yourself under an empty barbell and standing it back up. And as you get better and better, then you'll have a couple 5-pound plates in each side, then a couple 10-pound plates in each side, and these things will occur little by little. And recognize, here's what I think, in my personal opinion, most people don't realize. The pursuit of some of these movements, okay? Well, first of all, perfection is unobtainable. I've had the pleasure of, shaking hands with Olympic athletes that have won medals in these lifts, and they're some of the best in the world. They've won medals at the Olympics in these lifts, and then when you ask them that question, have you mastered the snatch? Have you mastered the clean and jerk? They will just laugh and be like, oh no, geez. And they can tell you from that last training session that they just did, which any of us would kill to look like them and move like them, they have a laundry list of things that went wrong in that lift and they don't like it and they're working on this, working on this. It is literally a never-ending pursuit. So it's important to keep that in mind. The other thing which is important to keep in mind is, we used to say this, teaching seminars and whatnot, that that musical instrument, the triangle, it's literally just a metal triangle and you have a little piece of steel and you ding, 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 you hit the triangle and it makes a sound. Well, that's a musical instrument. So is the violin. You are pursuing the violin. You are not pursuing the triangle, meaning it is a lifelong journey with no mastery at the end. You're just always trying to improve. The other thing we used to tell folks that I think caught a lot of people off guard is, if you come from an environment of what I just spoke of previously, less technically complicated movements, machine-based movements, isolation movements, single joint movements, which I'm here to tell you, that was my life previous to CrossFit. Your classic bodybuilding routine of Monday and Thursday being chest and tris, Tuesday and Friday being back and bis, Wednesday and Saturday being legs and abs, and I'd sprinkle in some time in the elliptical trainer. Mostly machine-based, mostly very simple movements. Then I went into CrossFit doing compound, multi-joint movements, extremely demanding of flexibility. I hadn't developed my coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance because you don't do that on machines. You're not going to get there. So it was a whole new world that made me feel like a newborn baby that had just never done anything before. And if you haven't been in a realm or a sport or a pursuit such as CrossFit does, where you dynamically and aggressively and appropriately open your hips, right, with midline stabilization to drive a barbell in the exact path that you want it to, explosive, potent hip drive, just opening your hips and controlling that and timing it in the sequence is so foreign to some people that we used to say, depending upon your athletic background, just to learn how to do that effectively is a 2 to 4 year odyssey for some people. Let me say that again. Effectively, appropriately, and with the correct timing, opening your hips to drive whatever load you're hoping to drive in the appropriate direction can take 2 to 4 years for some people to get. So, what I see very frequently is somebody has been trying to do something for a month or two, and they're not where they want to be after a month or two, and a level of frustration has set in. I get that. We're human beings. That's a normal human reaction. I think it's then critically important to frame your experience, as I just said, with you're most likely on a 2 to 4 year odyssey. So now, see where you are on that 2 to 4 year odyssey and realize you have many, many more steps ahead of you just to develop a baseline level of competence. Don't let the fact that it's a 2 to 4 year odyssey deter you or demotivate you, because the juice is worth the squeeze. That time and effort that you're going to put in, the payoff is worth it. And even along the way, as you develop incrementally, it will positively and substantially impact your fitness, your training, your quality of life, and your capacity. And here's the other deal. Whether you pursue these functional movements or not, and life demands functional movements, 2 to 4 years is coming, no matter what. Whether you give up or whether you stay the course, 2 to 4 years is coming. And so when it's 3 years from now, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. You could have stayed the course and have a profound level of competency, or you could have given up and been like, dang it, had I just kept practicing, I would probably be doing really well right now. So stay the course. Okay, it's worth it. The payoff is worth it. With that being said, that's, you can do it by yourself in your garage. You may have heard of a very talented Olympic lifter, one of the best movers in the world, also has a gold medal around his neck, Ben Smith, from a games champion. Awesome, awesome human being, by the way. Ben Smith just learned how to Olympic lift in his garage watching videos from Mike Bergner, from Coach Bergner, the same Bergner that we have from the Bergner warm-up. He's got tons of videos on YouTube. He just kept watching them, kept figuring it out, kept practicing, and he's poetry in motion with the barbell. So point being, it's absolutely possible. It's just hard and challenging, but you can certainly do it. With that being said, let's be fair and honest with each other. If you have some extra cash rolling around and you want to pay, if you're familiar with a talented coach in your local area for whatever it happens to be, Olympic lifts, gymnastics, sprinting, whatever, you can go ahead and take that cash, give it to that coach, and pay them for an hour of their time and get their expertise and their eyes on you and only you for 60 solid minutes. That's absolutely fantastic. And that's huge. And that will help catapult your progress forward like few other things. There's no question about that. But a lot of people might find themselves in the middle. Maybe you go and see a coach like that once a month, twice a month, whatever, fits for you and your budget and your time and your goals and your desires. And they give you homework and you get this excellent in-person feedback. They tune up a couple things on you. Again, they give you homework and they say, we'll see you next month. Check back in. You've made the progress that you've made. You work on some other things. You do your homework. That's a fantastic way to do it. Fantastic. And, that will accelerate your progress like nothing else. But, like I said, for those that don't want to do that or can't afford it or whatever it happens to be, learning these things at home on your own, yes, utterly and completely possible. So, let's see. So, again, and the last part of your question is, when they're programmed, should you always scale or replace them? And I hate to say it depends, but it depends, right? You should replace the movement if you cannot do it safely, okay? If you can lower the loading and do the movement safely and effectively, well, then lower the loading. So maybe if the workout's Amanda, very challenging movement, right? Ring muscle-ups and the full snatch at 135 or 95 pounds. Maybe 95 pounds for Emma is far too much, but she could do that with 75 pounds. Full snatch would be fine. 65 pounds would be fine. An empty women's bar, 35 pounds. Maybe that would be just fine. So there are ways that you might be able to scale the loading and still practice the movement in the workout, safely and appropriately. Now, if the answer is, I can't do it safely, then yes, you want to go ahead and replace that movement and then continue practicing on the side until you develop a level of competence, proficiency, and safety that you're comfortable putting into the workout, and hence the whole mechanics, consistency, and then intensity. So, fantastic question. Okay, moving right along. Question from Anne. Anne S. Anne, where are you? Let's see. Okay, here we go. Have you ever considered programming some stretching into the warm-ups? Or are the warm-ups considered dynamic enough not to need additional stretching? Do you personally do any extra mobility or stretching before the workout? So dynamic stretching in the warm-ups. Great question. So, easiest thing to say is that we do incorporate dynamic stretching into the warm-ups. It's actually the bulk of what we do. So it's probably important to define our terms. You've got static stretching and dynamic stretching. Static stretching is just you're in a stationary position, right? You're not moving, and you hold that position for a period of time. And we'll find these more in our cool down than you'll find them in our warm up. And that's largely because there's some research to indicate that static stretching can have an inhibitory effect on power. So we don't want that before we actually, get into the workout. Dynamic stretching, on the other hand, is performed while moving, and it mimics the movement, and it mimics the range of motion that we intend to perform. And so it is literally just that simple. Dynamic stretching, done while moving, you're not static, mimics the movement, mimics the range of motion that we're going to go down that road. And this happens all the time in our warm-ups when we run, we row, we bike, we lunge, we squat, we jumping air squat, Turkish get-ups, the Bergner warm-up, kip swings, banded pull-aparts, inchworm push-ups, agility drills, jumping jacks, high knees, butt kicks, the list goes on and on. All of those which we do not for time in the workout it's moving your joints and moving your body through a full range of motion in order to prepare for the workout. That, in essence, is dynamic stretching. Now, if you potentially are talking about something like arm circles, okay, we don't have arm circles in the warm-up, but we got something really close, just a horse of a different color, if you will, and that's the shoulder pass-throughs with the PVC pipe. Moving our shoulders through a circular range of motion, but we're doing it in a way that most likely mimics what we're going to do that day with a movement in the workout. So, yes, quite frankly, this is precisely what we do, and we do it because it works really, really, really well. And so, here's the other thing about warming up. There is a personal element to it as well. So the warm-ups that we program are time-tested. They work beautifully. But, if you've got a group of people, if you've got 2 people and you program a warm-up, chances are it might work well, right? There's only 2 people. Now let's say you have 200 people you program a warm-up. Now just by the fact that you've scaled the numbers up to 200, let's say that there's now could be 5 to 10 people who are like, I could use a little more, I could use a little less. That's just numbers. That's going to happen, right? So if on any particular day, you should always feel authorized to add a little something to the warm-up if you'd like, or take a little something back from the warm-up. The warm-ups that we do, I'll go out in the garage to warm up with my wife, and through dumb stuff that I've done in the military and motorcycles, my body is far more broken than hers. And so let's say the warm-up is, 4 rounds of something, not for time, right? Exactly what I'm saying. Bergner warm-up, jumping air squats, kip swings, whatever. After 2 rounds of it, she's like, I'm good, I'm warm, I'm ready to work out. I don't need to do the last 2 rounds. Whereas me, I'm like, I absolutely have to do the last 2 rounds. I am not ready to work out right now. 2 people, same warm-up. One is good with 2 rounds. One's good with 4 rounds. Somebody else might be good with 3 rounds. And so you are always authorized to do that. And the warm-ups ideally, and if you look at Thursdays and Sundays, which are rest days on Linchpin, there's some text that I put into the private track notes. I don't have it verbatim in my head right now, but it talks about warm-ups, for example. And it basically says that the Linchpin warm-ups are designed to use in a couple different ways. If you don't want to think about warm-ups, you don't like creating warm-ups, you just want to look at what it is and do it, they will serve you well for the rest of your life. However, you can also use them in a different way, which is, since you're going to go through a whole bunch of different warm-ups over the course of several weeks, you will get exposed to a bunch of various different ways to warm up, and you might find some things that work just beautifully for what you have going on with your body, and maybe for you personally, it makes sense to embrace those a little more frequently than somebody else. You absolutely can do that. Absolutely. I can speak to myself. For example, if we're going below parallel, Yeah, I need some time to warm up, but I would say I need a normal and appropriate amount of time. Now, if we're going below parallel with a front squat, well, my shoulders are so bad, again from the military and motorcycle wrecks, that my front rack position takes forever to warm up. And so on days like that, to answer your question, and do I ever do something a little extra? On a front squat day, I will personally, but the way that my shoulders are, luckily is not luckily most people's shoulders are in better condition than mine, and therefore they wouldn't need to do the extra 15 minutes worth of stuff that I would need to do just because my shoulders are so bad and I need to put that much time in just to get in a mediocre rack position. But somebody else might be that way with maybe they've got a bad hip, maybe they've got a bad knee, and they know on any particular day they need a little bit of extra love because of what they personally have going on with their hip, for example. By all means, add a little something in there. But the overwhelming majority of the time, whatever the prescribed warm up is, that's precisely what I do. So hopefully that helps there. Let's see. Okay. Next question. Ooh, here we are. This is from Sean M. Okay. And it's about rucking, rucksacks, backpacks, if you will. So Sean says, rucking. What's the deal with this phenomenon that the Linchpin community is always talking about? Any experience with rucking? Pros and cons to adding it into one's fitness routine. So yes, I don't know what it is with all the crazy people that we have in the Linchpin community, but we've got a lot of folks that love to put on a backpack, put on a rucksack, put some load in there, and just walk. Just go for a rucksack march, if you will. So, let's get into the questions that Sean asked. First of all, it's functional. I'll give you that. I mean, we're talking about you're moving a load across planet Earth from point A to point B. 100% functional and awesome. So there's value and utility in doing that. Midline strength is demanded from walking around with a rucksack. Leg strength, stamina, potentially something which might be hard to scientifically quantify and measure, but also has value, which is enduring discomfort, depending upon the terrain, the loading, and the time duration of which you're going to be out there moving that rucksack from point A to point B. And so there's some nice benefits to obviously enduring discomfort and learning that you can indeed do exactly that, endure discomfort. Now, am I familiar with rucking? Yes. Yes, as a former military member, yes, I'm familiar with having a rucksack on my back, loading it up, having a whole bunch of other crap that I need to lug around, and moving from point A to point B, which was usually way further than I wanted it to be, way more hilly than I wanted it to be. Ugh, yes, absolutely. I have plenty of experience with that. Now I know that's not as comfortable as the way that they do it in the civilian world, but I would just say I'm probably mentally scarred from that. So putting on a rucksack, putting weight in it, and then walking around planet Earth is now, as a civilian, not how I choose to spend my precious free time. And that's not a knock on anybody that does it. It's just, again, probably scarred into my head, not something that I now associate with, hey, it sounds fun, let's go move a load from point A to point B. Much as I don't associate, putting on a pair of swim fins, hopping into the ocean in February and swimming 3 miles, a pleasurable experience anymore. So there's just some things that I think, just for me personally, they're just not how I spend my time, but that is not, as I said before, a knock on the benefits of rucking and the fact of whether or not I think people should do it and people enjoy it. They absolutely do. And there are some other things that, yeah, they're not scientific, but beneficial. One of them I just mentioned, People love it. That in and of itself is good enough. If you like doing it, have a blast. And it challenges people. That's also wonderful. It gets people outside. That I think is a home run. That might be in my mind one of the greatest features of it. It gets you outside the walls of the gym, gets you out in nature. You might be doing it with friends, helps build some camaraderie. Absolutely perfect. And, depending upon the load that you have in the rucksack, and if you do the same route multiple times, well, then you have something which is measurable, observable, and repeatable, and you can gauge your progress. So that's fantastic as well. And it's a useful skill to possess. And it may not seem like it's a skill or there's technique involved, but there absolutely is. And if you don't think that there is, you probably just haven't had a rucksack on your back and had to move. So, and you know what's funny is there is a wonderful bit of variance in rucking or having a rucksack on your back. Once a year, Dan Bailey and I, Dan's obviously very well known in the CrossFit community, we usually do a backpacking trip, a hiking trip, at least an overnighter, sometimes two, but usually an overnighter. And it's always mountainous, right? Some hiking up and down some godforsaken piece of the earth. Because people seem to find that fun. And what's interesting is, I consider myself in really good shape. Dan considers himself in really good shape. And at the end of the day's hiking, when we take our rucksacks off, our backpacks, even though they're beautiful backpacks, like made to be comfortable and made to carry a load a long distance, we're just wiped. It's challenging and it's tough. And I think because of the variance, it hits something even though we work out all the time and we do all these beautiful functional movements. Again, you fail at the margins of your experience, right? And this is what we mean by that is margin meaning border, perimeter. So you've got this little circle, your little bowl, and in this bowl is all the stuff that you do all the time. Time domains, loadings, movements, whatever it is. And it makes sense that whatever you do all the time, you get good at. And now anything which is outside the margins of your experience, outside that perimeter, outside that bowl that all that stuff's in, well, you're not going to do those things quite as well. Now, our goal in CrossFit is to have movements that have a large degree of transference, even to things outside of that margin, outside of that perimeter. And that's the beauty of functional movements, the beauty of variance, the beauty of intensity. But there are still some things, if you push it far enough, you're going to know that I don't do this too frequently. And so, a long day of hiking, there's just not too many times that I have to put on 40 to 50 pounds, keep it on my body, and then hike 10 hours with it uphill. That's an unusual day's training. Constant loading on your body with no break for 10 hours uphill. That's some variance right there that even if you're profoundly fit, it's outside the margin of what you do on a regular basis. And getting outside of your comfort zone, there's value there. There's wonderful value there. So there's a lot of good things about rucking. But if I had a bunch of friends that said, hey, what you doing today? We're going to put on some backpacks, we're going to load them up, and we're going to walk for a prolonged distance, I would say, that sounds fantastic. I'll be here drinking coffee if you need me. But, like I said, that's just me. So we will end with that one. And then I've got, of course, a few cool shout-outs from the Linchpin community, screenshots that I grabbed from the Private Track Facebook group, which I find motivating, or I found motivating, and I hope you do as well. The first one is from Matt S., and he basically, I'll summarize, he says he's got a buddy named Ross. They've known each other from the 6th grade, many, many years ago. They were tight through college, but then admittedly they lost touch. But then they somehow reconnected last summer. Matt started following Linchpin, and then his buddy did as well, and now they've been doing workouts together over Zoom. They did the Open together during Zoom, and so they've kind of reconnected through fitness, and I just think that's absolutely phenomenal. And I got him back with an old buddy. Next one we have here, I labeled it as prescribed push-ups. And this is from Jennifer M. And she wrote with 3 exclamation points. Did actual push-ups! 3 exclamation points. Not sure where those came from, but I did all 130 from my toes. So, we had 130 push-ups in this workout. It was, we're doing McGee this one particular day. Deadlift started to feel heavy, started out with box jumps, switched to step-ups, etc., etc. But, so she went from push-ups being a struggle, most likely scaling them and doing knee push-ups, to now a workout came up and she did 130. And this is what's important to realize, because depending upon where you are in your fitness journey, that story that I just said hits you like a ton of bricks, or you're not sure what the big deal is, right? Because everyone's starting at a different place. Somebody, their big struggle is, squat snatch is just stuck at 215, can't get 225, really want the 2 plates in each side. Oh, that's so terrible. That's their struggle. Someone else's struggle, regular push-ups, prescribed push-ups from your toes, not from your knees, and doing a high volume of them in a workout for plenty of people is a huge milestone that they are looking to tackle and one day accomplish. And Jennifer did that. So that's absolutely cool. Jennifer, well done. Okay, 2 more. This is entitled 2 Years with Linchpin. This is from Adam D. He said, all right, friends, next week will be 2 years that I've been following CrossFit Linchpin, and it has been a crazy 2 years. New job, second baby, new house, and well, this whole pandemic thing. He says, thanks to the Linchpin community for helping me embrace scaling and putting my ego aside. And then he references the workout that we've done several times, which is the 5-rounder of burpees and kettlebell swings. And he's got 4 different times from a 9-minute and 54-second back in 2019 to now he's taken about 3 minutes off that. Now 6:53. So from 9:54 in 2019 to 6 minutes and 53 seconds in 2021. So that's a pretty darn good 2 years. So well done, Adam. And the final one, this one just popped up yesterday, I believe. This is from Julie. She says, hey friends, I haven't posted in a while, but I'm still here, still keeping after it, and I just wanted to say how good it feels to have the freedom to scale the scaled workout. I got this workout in on my lunch break during a very busy season in my work, and as a mom, I feel proud and thankful that fitness could be achieved even with this small amount of time. Again, says it's super encouraging. Big thanks to the Linchpin community. Scaling is cool. So that makes me very happy, Julie, because we talk about that all the time, right? Whether it's the prescribed workout of the day or the scaled workout of the day, that you are always authorized to make the best decision for you. You might be somewhere in the middle, right? The prescribed workout's a bit too robust. The scaled workout's a bit too easy. You make a decision in the middle. Fantastic. Maybe the scaled workout is right where you need to be. But for plenty of people, they look at the scaled workout and they should scale it a bit more. And the fact that, some people think there's a stigma associated with that. Well, I can't scale the scaled workout. What does that say about my level of fitness? Who cares? No one cares. The only thing that we should care about is each athlete making the best choice and the most appropriate choice that they can for wherever they are on their fitness journey. And so if scaling, the scaled workout is where you need to be, then that is the smart choice, the healthy choice, and the choice that will propel your fitness further, faster, than struggling through a workout that's a bit too much for you. So I'd love to see stuff like that happen. So that's it. Enjoy your rest day, and see you back here tomorrow for some more fun working out.